Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of the second season of the Quality Talk podcast. My name is Prashant. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm trained in media, communications, and journalism, and I create this podcast every week where I talk about things which matter to all of us, whether that's something related to health and well-being, news and current affairs, society, or culture. To help us, me and those of you who listen to this podcast, for the last few weeks, I've been talking about things that can make our time through the ongoing lockdown easier. Like how music and books can help us at this time, and whether our current obsession with data and numbers about the pandemic is helping or harming us. And today, continuing with this theme, I want to address something that is not just important for us at this time of a lockdown, but it's something that's important for us in life in general. And that is self-care. If we were to ask someone, do you take care of yourself? Many of us would say without thinking, yes, I do, or I try to. And depending on who you ask, you might even end up offending someone by this question. They might think, what kind of a question is this? Of course I take care of myself. Does it not look like I take care of myself? But if you ask a follow-up question, what do you do to take care of yourself? That's when things start to get a bit tricky. Because this is where many of us, including me, start feeling unsure of what we might say. I suspect a lot of us would say things like, I exercise regularly, get a good night's sleep, try and eat healthy, read or listen to music I like, spend time with family and friends, and so on. And all these activities definitely count as self-care. But they do not just by themselves define the concept of self-care. In other words, self-care is not limited to these activities. In fact, I looked up and self-care has a much broader definition. It is anything that is good for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. The World Health Organization defines self-care as anything which helps us as individuals and communities to prevent disease, maintain health, or cope with an illness and disability, either with or without a healthcare provider. Sounds good. So everything I mentioned earlier, exercise, good quality sleep, eating healthy, and other things count towards us practicing self-care. What is more important to note here is what does not constitute self-care. That's an unusual question, and this is where a deeper and more meaningful definition of self-care comes in handy. I found this article I was reading earlier, and it said that something we force ourselves to do or something we don't enjoy doing is not self-care. Let me repeat that. It says that something we force ourselves to do or something we don't enjoy doing is not self-care. Because self-care is something that refuels us rather than takes from us. That is food for thought, isn't it? Once I understood this definition by reading it again and again, I realized that many of us do several things in our lives which we do not really want to do or even enjoy doing. We might be doing work or jobs that we don't find enjoyable, but we still have to do them because we need money to survive, and there is no other option at the moment. We might be living in a place where we have to live because we don't have the luxury or the resources to live somewhere better, somewhere we would actually want to live. And this is the reality of life, that many of us have to force ourselves to do things we don't want to do or enjoy doing. So this means, going back to the definition of what self-care is not, we are all doing things either on a personal or professional front which we are forced to do. And these things take something from us mentally, emotionally, or even physically. These things do not constitute self-care. Because we have them in our lives and we cannot escape from them at the moment, so we need to intentionally and mindfully practice certain other things which can counter their effect on us. We must do those things which give something to us, which refuel us on a mental, emotional, or a physical level. And this is why self-care matters, because when we do things like regular exercise or get enough sleep, eat a healthy diet, or spend time with loved ones, they help us feel more refreshed and thus ready to basically be able to do the things which we have to do in life. This realization is important to establish a very clear understanding and need for self-care activities, which we all know are good for us, but sometimes we still don't necessarily follow through with them. We need to make an active choice to schedule self-care activities we truly enjoy doing in our lives, so we give back to ourselves and are then in a position to have more energy to do the things that we have to do and hopefully get to a better place in life. In this current time of a pandemic, self-care matters more than ever because right now, many of us are in a forced isolation. Many of us are facing situations we don't enjoy and that is beyond our control. For example, we might have lost our jobs and livelihoods, and we have been asked to stay at home more than we would like to or enjoy to. So as these times are taking something from us, we owe it to ourselves to take care and practice self-care. We owe it to ourselves to do things which we enjoy so they refuel us, keep us encouraged, and keep us going through this time. The second point that I want to raise about self-care is that, much like you, I also feel constrained right now in what type of self-care activities I can and cannot do at the moment. And due to social distancing rules, several things that we used to enjoy doing are just not possible anymore. And that's okay. It's okay to realize that this is the need of the hour and we have some options to choose from still. What we need to do, as experts suggest, is to ask ourselves at a certain point when we feel anger, panic, or sadness and grief, that what do I need right now? What can I do at this point which can help me, make me feel less of this anger, panic, or sadness? Maybe a walk in the local park, or a cup of homemade coffee or tea, or maybe reading your favorite book, or just simply spending some time quietly with yourself and being with the emotions that you're feeling at the moment. All of these can help us, and each one of them is self-care. It's important to match the intensity of our actions with our emotions. If we are feeling emotionally charged and energetic, then a jog might be a good idea. But if you feel sad and low, then perhaps journaling or reading or just sitting under a tree might help. From my own personal experience, these simple self-care activities really work. They are what is getting me through this time when I'm all by myself. A daily walk in the park, yoga and meditation as a relaxation exercise help me. I hope you can find ways to practice self-care that works for you at this time. Another thing about self-care which I want to bring up here is that looking after yourself does not make you selfish. On the contrary, when you take care of yourself appropriately, you are able to be in a better place in every way. Not looking after yourself and sacrificing your needs can affect a lot of things like our self-esteem, our ability to handle everyday stress in life, our relationships, and the way we function as a person. In fact, one thing I can personally vouch for is that giving up on your own needs to suit others can be very counterproductive and straight up dangerous. So self-care is not a selfish activity at all. In a time when many of us are experiencing a lot of stress and uncertainty, it can be helpful if you try to find a few things unique to your mental and emotional needs. The last point about self-care I would like to address here is its rise as a trend. These days, if you go on social media and search for self-care, thousands of posts will come up promoting things like healthy eating, yoga, fitness routines, and meditation. Many celebrities and social media influencers have also built businesses around the concept of self-care, and much like everything else, it has been commercialized and commodified. Although this is a worrying sign, but I would like to remind you that the choice is always ours. Just like I talked about using social media wisely a couple of episodes ago, here too, whether we choose to believe and start following something we see on social media about self-care or not, is completely our choice. The forms of self-care we choose to include in our life is deeply personal. It is logical. As individuals, we know that there are things we can do to keep ourselves healthy, and that is all we need to focus on. We don't have to diagnose or treat ourselves with mental health conditions. All we need to do, and what I'm saying to do in this episode is to use self-care as a means to reduce the stress levels during this pandemic. Of course, if you or someone you know is facing a mental health condition, then there is professional help available, which is what you really should be reaching out for without any shame or hesitation. In fact, having a self-care routine is one part of a mental health strategy, and it is in no way a replacement for things like therapy and proper medical attention from healthcare providers in circumstances where these are needed. That, I think, is an important reminder for all of us. So as we reach the end of this episode, I would like to say that self-care is important to nurture and look after ourselves. It has been around for many years. It can be something as simple as taking a walk in the park or saying no to mindless scrolling on social media and checking your emails every few minutes. It has been helpful for me in my mental health journey to realize that simple things like regular exercise, yoga, meditation, writing, as well as reading are an important part of my self-care plan. I encourage you all to find what works for you in terms of self-care and give it a go. Good health and well-being is our fundamental responsibility and something we all deserve. And with that, we've reached the end of this episode on self-care. I hope you found it useful. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. I'll be back next week with another topic that matters to all of us on some level. Until then, I wish you all a wonderful week. Stay safe and stay healthy.